History class definitely skipped these chapters. If you've ever felt like the past is much darker than we were told, you're absolutely right. Here are the top 10 dark historical events they didn't want you to find out about. Let's open up the files. Let's start with birds. Big, fast, weaponised birds. In 1932, Australia launched a full-blown military campaign against emus. Farmers in Western Australia were struggling with an emu infestation destroying crops, so naturally, the government sent soldiers armed with machine guns. What followed was a spectacular failure. The emus outran trucks, dodged bullets like feathery ghosts, and even flanked the soldiers. After multiple attempts and 0 wins, the military backed off. The emus, still out there. The media dubbed it the Great Emu War, and no, Australia does not like to talk about it. It's funny now, but it low-key exposed governmental disorganisation, even in a military context. A literal war lost to birds. Back in 1950, the US military decided to do a little test. Without notifying anyone, they sprayed a bacterial agent over San Francisco. Yeah, an entire major city. It was called Operation Sea Spray. The goal was to simulate a biological attack and see how far the bacteria could spread in a dense urban area. Unsurprisingly, people got sick. At the time, the strain was considered harmless, but it's now known to cause infections. One man died from a rare urinary illness, and others showed strange symptoms. The full ramifications still aren't fully understood, and the locals only found out decades later. Just imagine walking to work through a chemical experiment. Cute, right? In 1518 in Strasbourg, something strange and very real took over the streets. People dancing uncontrollably. Hundreds reportedly joined in, unable to stop moving for days. Some even collapsed from exhaustion and died. No music, no party, just relentless, possessed dance. Historians call it the dancing plague of 1518, and theories range from mass hysteria, ergot poisoning, to stress-induced psychosis. The weirdest part? This wasn't an isolated event. Similar outbreaks happened across Europe. Over centuries, whole towns dancing to death. The vibe was less flash mob, more apocalyptic episode, and we may never know exactly why. You probably haven't heard of Kishtim, Russia, and that's no accident. In 1957, a massive explosion ripped through the Mayak nuclear plant, releasing more radiation than Chernobyl. Yep. But since the plant wasn't on maps and the USSR had a tight lid on bad PR, the event was classified and nearly forgotten. Residents developed severe burns and illnesses. Contaminated soil was quietly buried, or tried to be. It wasn't until the late 1980s that details started slipping out. Even today, the place is part of the East Ural radioactive trace, a real place with a name that says "Don't come here." This one's got serious X-Files energy. Between the 1970s and 1990s, the CIA ran a real-life psychic spy program known as Project Stargate. Their goal? Train people to perform remote viewing. Basically, use clairvoyance to locate objects or people at a distance. Think spies with a sixth sense. Declassified files show the government took it oddly seriously. One viewer even claimed to psychically witness a Soviet submarine. Did it work? Depends who you ask. The CIA says it was terminated for lack of usefulness. But honestly, they kept it running for 20 plus years. Sounds like someone saw something they weren't ready for. If you've never heard of Porton Down, they'd prefer it stays that way. Located in the UK, this secretive government research facility has spent decades testing chemical and biological weapons, often on unsuspecting people. Starting in the 1940s, volunteers and servicemen were exposed to toxic agents like nerve gas. One soldier, Ronald Madison, died during an experiment involving sarin in 1953. The government covered it up for decades, Porton Down still operates today, and it's rumoured to house some of the most dangerous substances on Earth. It's not on your British sightseeing tours for a reason. Tucked behind New York City is an island cut off from time, North Brother Island. Once the quarantine home of Typhoid Mary, it later served as a World War II veterans hospital, and later a rehab centre that quietly closed under mysterious conditions. It's now completely abandoned. Forgotten buildings overtaken by trees, medical chairs rusting under vines, entire record books left behind. Even the government doesn't seem eager to clean it up. Why? Some believe it's still toxic. Others think there's more buried there than just history. Either way, you can't visit without special permission. Convenient, huh? In 1995, a brutal heatwave hit Chicago. Temperatures soared over 100 and power grids failed. But what's truly disturbing isn't the weather, it's the aftermath. Over 700 people died. Most were elderly, poor, or isolated, and largely ignored. The city initially underreported the deaths, then downplayed the disaster. Official excuses flowed, but years later, sociologists revealed the truth. Systemic neglect. Entire communities left to swelter and suffocate, while the city avoided political backlash. These were preventable deaths hidden behind bureaucratic indifference. A chilling example of how invisibility can be fatal. During World War II, the US developed bat bombs. And no, that's not a band name. These were literal bats strapped with timed incendiary devices. The plan? Release thousands over Japan at dawn. Bats would roost inside buildings and detonate. It actually worked during one test. A mock town burned to the ground. But before deployment, the project was cancelled in favour of the atomic bomb. Imagine history if this plan had gone live. Burning cities filled with tiny flying arsonists. Wartime creativity is nothing if not terrifying. The 1904 St. Louis Olympic Games were basically an absurd fever dream. First, the marathon was run in brutal heat, with only one water station. One runner was poisoned on purpose by his coach. Another hitched a car ride and almost won. There were sideshow events, unsanctioned competitions, and questionable anthropology exhibits masquerading as sport. It was a chaotic mess. Most of it was later swept under the rug by officials, embarrassed by the spectacle. And yes, technically, medals were awarded, but the entire event felt more like a dystopian social experiment. Olympic spirit? That year it looked dark and unhinged. And there you go, 10 more moments from history that were conveniently left out of the tour guide brochure. If you stuck around till the end, you're our kind of curious. Be sure to like, subscribe, and come back each weeknight for another glimpse into the hidden and bizarre. Take care of your nervous system, keep asking weird questions, and as always, that was your dose of the unknown. See you in the next file. Subscribe for more of the unknown.